Greetings, everyone, and how are you? That was so powerful. Can we just agree that was powerful? Whatever has been shared for the last panel and the previous fireside chat, that was powerful. Thank you so much, Christopher. Thank you, Antoinette. And with me here is our second roundtable panel for Gatherverse Summit 2025, and it is titled Adaptive Leadership Embracing Innovation in Uncertain Times. I am not alone. I have a roster of expert leaders who are going to help us demystify this amazing discussion. Panelists, I ask you to mute your mics unless when you're speaking, and kindly introduce yourselves briefly, as brief as you can. And we will start with you, Anne. Kindly introduce yourself, and we will go all the way and conclude with Jamie. And the mic is yours.
Thank you so much. Good day, everybody. My name is Anne-Marie Naga, and I'm the founder of Cybershare Inc., which is a digital literacy platform. In the face of, where technology is moving really quick, I take a beat and teach people how to use the technologies that are existing. And then I am a SOC leader, which is a Security Operations Center by trade. So nice to meet you all, and I'm excited for this.
Thank you. We're happy to have you. Grant, over to you.
Yes, thank you very much. My name is Grant McGaw. I am the CEO of 5-Star BDM. That stands for Brand Development Master. I'm a world-class podcaster for the last 4 years. I specialize in personal branding, business development, as well as investment banking for small and mid-sized businesses and entrepreneurs to help them to elevate and scale to the highest level.
We greet you, Grant. Thank you for joining us. Bay, happy to see you again. The mic is yours.
Hi, Ling. Hi, everyone. Nice to meet you. My name is Bei Wang. I'm from the Netherlands. I'm a serial entrepreneur and a media and communication consultant. But at this moment, I really want to focus and emphasize my identity as a teacher. My latest teaching project is I have developed a course offered here in the Netherlands, but also to France. It's called Tech for Good. And very excited to share the roundtable with you guys.
Wow, we're happy to have you. Liu, over to you.
That would be me. My name is Hai Hao. My background is in science and research. I consider myself first and foremost a scientist and educator. I conducted research in AI at MIT and pursued a Master of Education at Harvard. And so I'm, wearing those hats as well as a budding entrepreneur, I guess you could say. I am working on a startup where the idea is to take some of the research I did and the things I learned about education and to kind of radically transform how students will learn given the power of AI. And I'm excited to have a chat with everyone.
Thank you for joining us. We're happy to have you. Naja.
Hi, Lynn. Good to see you again. Thank you, Gatherverse and Christopher, for yet another amazing event. My name is Natya Besta. I'm the co-founder of AdLunam. We operate in the Web3 space. You're at the intersection of institutional funding and emerging, innovation in the emerging tech space. And I have a background in psychology and sociology. So that, in this kind of tech world that we live in really translates into a lot of market psychology for understanding what is going on, I guess, in this crazy time that we live in. So very, very excited to be talking about this topic today. AdLunam is a Web3 investment ecosystem. So we have an accelerator for early stage startups. We have various media brands. We have a token sale platform, which is the Web3 equivalent of, a platform on which you would do an IPO. So various different aspects of both Web3 and tech, I think will be very pertinent in this discussion today. Looking forward to an amazing conversation with everyone.
Always happy to have you. Camila, over to you.
Hey everyone, my name is Camille Sanders. I am a global strategist and ecosystem builder and CEO of Greater Than Equal. I work at the intersection of sustainability, technology, and equity, and I help leaders manage and engage external and internal stakeholders so that they can drive systemic change. I'm very excited to be here in this conversation.
We're happy to have you. Jamie?
Good morning, everyone. I'm Jamie Dameron Larson. Excuse me. I am a keynote speaker and professional coach and adversity specialist. And what I help my clients and my audiences do is understand the power of adversity and loss and uncertain times to take the power from those moments and bring them into our leadership, because I think they're very personal. And a lot of times people leave a lot of power on the table and then go into their professional lives. And I help people mesh those together. And I'm very happy to be here to talk about adaptive leadership. So thank you for having me.
We're happy to have you as well. And my name is Lynn Gitao, Communications Director for Gatherverse, and we're very, very happy to have you here. Our dear audience, kindly feel free to engage with this discussion. Dear panelists, can you get started? Shall we start? Okay. And I'm going to draw this to you, Jamie, since you talked about power in uncertainty. This is the best for you. What does adaptive leadership mean to you in a rapidly changing world? And anyone can chime in on that as well.
Thank you. I think the first thing to understand about adaptive leadership, and the first part of it, is to understand that there will always be something that we're adapting to. And there's uncertainty around positive things, and there's uncertainty around things that scare us. So as leaders, before we even get into the adaptive part of life, find out what's not adaptive about you as a leader. Every leader needs a North Star, and we need things that we understand, that we are steeped in, that we know will not change, and how we move forward and how we treat others, and the basis of what our leadership is. That way, we will be better informed on how to adapt to other things. We will also be more prepared to help our teams adapt to whatever new challenge is coming down the road for us, and understand that it's a constant battle. I know that people love their quiet times and they're like, okay, good, and enjoy those, but understand that you get prepared then for whatever that next challenge is. So our North Star informs our adaptation.
Yeah, that is a very, very powerful sentiment when you just mentioned that on the importance of reflecting as leaders. It comes with the reflection, and that there's uncertainty in the positive changes and there's uncertainty in the negative changes, which leads me to a very, very important question here on flexibility and open-mindedness. We have evaluated ourselves as the leaders. How flexible are we and open-minded are we with the teams? And I'm bringing this to you, Naja. How do we encourage that culture of flexibility and open-mindedness in teams? And anyone can also chime in on that.
Yeah, I mean, that's a really great question. And I think there's never been a more important time for this, because flexibility and open-mindedness is literally no longer an option. The rapid pace at which the world is changing. And, you know, we've been throwing the word change around and change management. And if you're on, strategic consulting, you make a living out of it. That's been doing the rounds for a really long time. But now when we are talking about change, we are talking about we literally might not recognize the world that we live in, the society that we live in, and the humans that we live with in just a couple of years. I mean, if you keep up to date with how technology is developing in every single area, it's insane the rate of innovation that's out there. Yes, it's not hit the market yet. And I mean, you can have an entire panel discussion about, what are these obstacles to bringing about this either utopian or dystopian future. But I think the key to recognizing that flexibility is not optional is then to understand that it's actually not so complex. It's a brain muscle. It's the more you exercise any muscle, the easier it gets. And I mean, this is really what life is all about. So I always say, because for me, I mean, I think change, I flourish in change. I think I have an unfair advantage, but it's also because I was forged in the fires of change, right? It's because I extracted the gold from it. And I also say that our team is lucky because we operate in a space where if you can't be flexible, you can't be in that industry. But this is not to say that the team that we have were already native to the industry before they started with us. It's really just a case of, exercising that muscle and understanding that it's non-negotiable. And then I think really, it's a career thing, but the career aspect reflects the fact that right now, if you want to have any semblance of stability, I think stability, because we are also redefining what stability means. 6 months, 1 year from now, you need to make it a personal goal to understand that now is the time to investigate what is going on, what do you need to know, what do you not need to know. So I hope that answered the question. Thanks, Lynn.
Yes, that was a powerful expression, and I love the analogy of flexibility with our muscles. They are the only way to become flexible, even our own physical bodies, is exercise. So if we continue exercising that flexibility, I think that's how it becomes easier. Camilla, do you want to add something to this, or do I pass the next question to you?
I can do maybe both, all the above. So I love what the other speakers are saying. And, I talk a lot about strategy. And one of the things that you have to understand when we're talking about flexibility and open-mindedness is a lot of times people want to be so rigid when it comes to leadership. They just want to do one style. They do their strategy and they want to follow it to a T. But when you're building your strategy, like one speaker said, you're setting a foundation of your vision, your mission, your goals. It's a foundation. It's a backbone for you to go back and refer to, but you're always flexible when you're executing, right? Because the only thing that strategy is going to do is as you're executing, if you're not doing something right or something doesn't turn out as you expect, okay, go back, make sure you're aligning with your mission and your vision and your foundation and your core values. But then move and do something different, do a different tactic. So don't be so rigid that you have to do this specific thing, but do have that foundation. And I would go back to also saying, to answer this question, adjusting your strategy, it is a muscle and it is something that you change on a regular basis. Like I will be in a meeting because I facilitate a lot of projects. And I know different people have different perspectives. They have different ways that they like to work. And so you may be in a meeting and you may be managing a lot of different people or leading a lot of different people. And you have to be aware that you're going to have to adjust on the fly. Like whether it's I do like events or whether it's just in a meeting and you have a certain outcome, you're getting people to a certain vision. You have to adjust to people based on who's in the room, and you may not know who's in the room. So it's going to change every single time. You're going to let this conflict happen, right? And get through this conflict and have to adjust for that, but also make space for that and not be so rigid. So I can't even say that it's as a leader that it's one pinpoint thing or situation. It's you're constantly adapting, like every day, every situation, whether it's a conversation on the phone or it's a meeting or it's a larger project.
Yes, that is very powerful. We're constantly adjusting every time, and I couldn't agree more than that. And I just want to even draw back to an example that I myself have experienced here in Africa. It's not even just about the tech industry, but generally the world is changing. And some years back, I remember I couldn't have even internet, accessing internet itself, me being on this meeting some years back, maybe 5 years ago, not even 3 years ago, getting access to Wi-Fi for me was a challenge. But right now I'm seeing even 5G. And this is Africa. Now you can imagine the whole part of the world. And there's still some places that are catching up to this. But the overall theme I'm seeing here is change is constant. It happens every day, every minute, every second. And I want to bring this to you. Hi, how? What methods help leaders stay informed about emerging technologies? Please share what you have, and anyone can chime in on that as well.
Yeah, thank you, Lynn. I think this is a particularly apt question for me. Working especially in the AI space, right? I'm sure you've all, even if you don't work closely with AI, you've kind of had this experience where you're just overwhelmed with the sheer rate of new AI models and in the news and so especially in my experience, right, talking and working with teachers, a lot of them feel this way, right? They're like, oh, I want to include AI, in my classroom or in my curriculum, but I just don't know where to start. It's just so overwhelming, right? And so, I definitely feel that, right? Even as someone who, tries my best to keep up, it can definitely get overwhelming. And so, I think an important way, right, is to follow sort of the thought leaders in the field, right? So I do that mostly through LinkedIn. I found that we say a lot about the algorithm, but sometimes it does work, right? So I tend to see like the latest developments, right, like pretty high up on my feed, and I'm fairly up to date in that way. There are also sort of these newsletters or on Substack. For those that don't know, Substack has kind of become the how would you put it, like an online platform for all these people to share ideas and stuff. And so it's like a much more civil Twitter, I guess, where people can actually share ideas in long form. And there are a lot of educators that I follow who write about some of these latest tools. And so I think these kinds of principles can apply more generally, right? With obviously AI is the big thing now, and I work in education, but for sort of any field and any emerging technology, those would be kind of how I do it. But I want to kind of talk about a little bit less sort of concretely, like with these practical things, but just sort of the other thing about AI in particular is that with the rate of development, right, I think it's difficult to keep up if you don't have a sort of some level of foundational understanding. And what I mean by that is, with AI, I personally believe everyone should have some level of understanding of like, what is a neural network, right? What does it mean when they say, oh, this model has, this many more parameters, or like it used this much less to, like, I'm thinking about DeepSeek, right? It was in the news, like, it costs this much less compute. Like, what is compute, right? And again, I'm using AI as an example, but, with any sort of emerging trends and technology, it would serve you well to have a sort of solid foundation so that as these, developments, come out in the news, you have a sort of conceptual framework or context of what it is, rather than just, having these headlines being thrown at you. So those are some of my thoughts.
I totally agree on that, having a basic foundation. And I'm going to come to you on that because there's a very big challenge there. How do we get everyone to get this basic foundation? But before I come to you, I want to pass this to you, Bay. And before that, Wish is here. Kindly introduce yourself and then we'll come over to you, Bay.
So is Wish going? Yeah, Wish, go ahead.
Yeah.
Sorry for being late, guys. I had something come up and couldn't get out until now. I'm Wish. I'm the founder of Renaissance Analytics and the creator of Spark, an AI system that helps you turn your ideas into businesses and grow your business. Glad to be here. Thank you.
Thank you. We're happy to have you here. So, Bay, how do you balance risk with the pursuit of new ideas?
I want to connect this question also linked to what how just talked about, how we are facing in the education world, because as the teachers, that we feel like all the students, younger generation, should have access to the to knowledge, and to also to have the tool to empower them to access to knowledge. But I think with the current trend, we are actually putting more emphasis on, instead of just like using AI, but also kind of further nurture the critical thinking. Because I think at this moment, we kind of like see there's a lot of shift power dynamics, but also like the traditional business models, they are kind of shift towards a new kind of direction. And this is something that we are kind of now at school, we said, okay, if we want to nurture new ideas, it's not about, what is the new like a business model, or there is a design thinking tool we are using, but we are going back to the roots about being critical about data. Because currently, I think all around the world, young generation likes to use like a large languages model like ChatGPT and with DeepSeek. But we are starting to get really worried about, because there is a major bias and there's also unbalanced existing data. So we're kind of like go back to the roots and starting to be critical about, okay, do you have the skill of collecting the quality data? Because, if we look at the modern science, it's based on the available information and knowledge in the last hundreds of years. But there are a lot of parts of the world that information is not available there. I think in the natural science, if you ask what is the deepest part of this ocean, what is the temperature there, I think you still need research on that. And what if you ask also some like really indigenous culture, and we all know there's a major bias of like lack of data on that. So that's why we're going back to the roots about, okay, I think for innovation, it's we can see technology as a tool, but we want to emphasize that technology is a means to an end, but it's not the end goal itself, because we really want to bring back the human part, but also looking at all the living beings on the planet, because currently there is quite some an unbalanced discussion that there are more models about sustainability than the real action taking on sustainability. I'm based in Europe, and there are a lot of business models. There's all kind of new models, but there's too much theory. But there is a lack of really like hands-on nitty-gritty things. And the students, they are starting to get really lazy if they say, okay, we just get data through ChatGPT. But we said, no, stop using it and go to the places, work on no data scenario, lack of data, or like how do you get to the quality of raw data? So
okay,
I think
I'm gonna come to you, and
yeah.
those are very powerful sentiments that you mentioned there. And I just want to pass this on to Grant, and then we'll come back to you. There's something I want to find out more on what you're doing with students. And Grant, bringing this to you, what role does clear communications? You're a media personality, and what role does clear communication play in times of uncertainty? Bring the media aspect of this as well.
I think this is very important to understand power dynamics on a world stage, right? Let's just talk about Earth power dynamics. Power dynamics in this world is really, most of us controlled economically, then it's by government. And then what people don't realize, the third component of that is communication, even beyond military, right? So when you understand communication, and I've been in telecommunications over 25 plus years, the ability to influence large groups of people in a moment's notice is powerful. So when you go back to what was just previously discussed around these LLMs, who controls them, how they are programmed, this is a powerful consideration, right? Because just like in our own world, even before LLM, just talk about the basic newspaper, who controlled that? And then what's the difference between propaganda and just everyday news, right? So we start looking at the world of, we call it network television, network TV, your NBC News, your ABC News, your CNN. If they're not giving you what you would call unbiased information, it becomes very skewed. But then who owns these organizations? So you get out of the world of just what AI is doing. Look at what humans do to each other, and what is their end goal by doing that, right? We need to understand the power that we have, This is the most unprecedented power that we do have right now on this platform that we're on. We did not have this capability 5, 10, 15 years ago to come together as a world community and have real world discussion. Once you have a momentum of people, they say, no, I am free to speak my truth. Just like what Ms. Houston said earlier,
Yeah.
have an ability to self-define reality, right? We need to understand ourselves as human beings at a high level. Because I've been in technology for a very long time, I have a certain understanding. The human beings are really just recreating in a certain subset the world around them and utilizing it for gain one way or another. We ourselves accumulate over 1 to 2 terabits of information that we absorb as an experience on a daily basis. We are the most powerful, quote unquote, machines on the planet.
Yes, I
How do we
totally.
unleash that power? How do we begin to really express that at a mobile scale or something that is high end? It's something that we really need to contemplate. No AI engine is as powerful as the collective of the human mind or the different people. But when we know how to utilize these tools to our benefit, and this is the most ascertained time, talk about leadership and adaptive leadership. We now as individuals have more control over communication that we've ever had in a moment in history. I want to let that
Yes.
sink in.
I totally agree with that. This is the most important and most powerful time to express ourselves. And I kind of want to draw back to how you expressed the history of media and communications. And back then, when the information was only spread with the newspapers or just a telenetwork. Personally, where I come from, you could only find one person with a television station. So the person who used to control the message controlled the perspective of individuals, controlled what they think, controlled how they saw things. But right now it's very, very powerful because it's almost like everyone is awakening to having this information and they can tell their own story. That is very, very powerful. And Marie, I want to find out, you're a leader yourself. How can leaders encourage teams to embrace these new challenges and how can they become more adaptable? How do you see it?
Yeah, that's a great question. I actually just dealt with this right before getting onto this call, but I found that meeting people where they are definitely works. So if I want to change or embrace new technology or embrace new challenges as a leader, I need to understand the challenge. Like, what are we dealing with, and what is the capacity that we have within the team in order to deal with this challenge? And also, what is the end goal? What is the end goal of the challenge? And again, going back to what Jamie, Nadia, and Camilla said, you have a vision, you have a mission, you have a goal. If we have a challenge, is a challenge threatening our mission? Is it threatening our short-term goal? Is it our long-term goal? And also, how do I navigate this with the tools that are available to me to make sure that we're balancing like the work, the results, and also how do I not get my team to be overwhelmed? Because a lot of people, as much as we love change, as much as we love new technology, change is really hard. It's really hard to get through to the change. So, and also just as people, naturally, we're always asking what's in it for me. So within that change, what's in it for the team? Is the team expected to grow? Are there new skills that are going to be taught? Are there new skills that, things that we need to find? Do we need to go outside of ourselves? So really, it's kind of looking at it 360 and figuring out what is the best way for us to go without compromising the human element of everything that we're doing. And so that's how I encourage the team to embrace new challenges, talk about growth, and talk about all the good things that could happen and what's in it for them as well.
Yes, that is very, very powerful. Thinking about what's in it for the team. It's a very brilliant perspective that clicked on my mind. Which I want to bring this to you. What approaches do you think can help assess and respond to sudden industry changes. And anyone can chime in on this. If you feel you have something burning to share on this, kindly also chime in. Wish, over to you.
It's a good question. I think it really depends on the structure of the organization, really. If you're very much a lean type of startup, then adapting to change is not that big of a problem. If you're a very well-established industry or in business that already has really concrete processes, change can be very difficult and very expensive. So I think really it comes down to culture of the business itself. Like, does the business itself operate from that perspective of we're always going to be adaptable? Or are they just like, this is the problem we're trying to solve, this is how we solve it, and we're just going to convince the market to work with us? That doesn't usually last very long. Those businesses go out of business. So I think that's really the key is just having a culture of adaptability to begin with.
Yeah, Wish, I just want to follow up on something. What is a lean startup to you? Because there's so many people
Sure.
here, they're leaders, they're startup leaders who want to learn from you. Please tell us, what do you think about that?
So when I say lean startup, I don't just mean like lean in terms of resources available. That's usually a big part of it. You don't have a lot of money, so you're operating on small budgets, but also lean, you're using processes like Scrum or Agile development where you don't have a concrete map that you're taking to get to how you're solving your problem. You just realize that you're trying to solve a particular problem and you're not married to a specific solution on how that problem gets solved. You're just hell bent on solving that problem. And that allows you to be really flexible in how you get to that.
Yeah, like testing and then seeing what works and what doesn't and making the necessary adjustments. Exactly. That is very, very powerful. So I want to hear each and everyone's of you perspective on this. And I will start with you, Jeremy, briefly. How do you create an atmosphere of trust and experimenting with new ideas?
I think that you create the trust when you're not coming up with a new idea. I think that to try to throw it all into one place is difficult. And I think that trust is something that comes, like any other relationship, right from the beginning. And so before you try a new venture and you're going out into something, make sure that you already have the trust built in. And for your teams and for yourself to understand that when things are smooth, people trust you and you have a good cohesion in your team, then when things start to get new or choppy, that trust can hold through whatever that next challenge is. So do it in the smooth times. Create the trust before you head out to sea is what I would say.
Yeah, that is very powerful. And what I'm getting from you is, do you mean like build the trust as earlier as you just start before even these changes come? Is that what you mean?
It really does. Yes. It goes back to, ironically, the first question that you asked me. I think that when you are talking about being a leader and you have to be someone that is trustworthy. And that doesn't mean that you're not going to have problems, but right out of the gates, if you have that and you understand that you need a sense of integrity and a sense of trust in the business that you have for yourself, that the third party people that you work with, anybody that comes into your realm, if you have that reputation that follows that North Star of that kind of leader that you are, I think the new ideas, not only are you going to have an easier time introducing that, but other people are going to feel that integrity and be able to help you accomplish that idea. So I believe that trust is a character trait. And I think that it's a very important part of who we are as people, both personally and professionally, and to have a very honest relationship with yourself first about what kind of person you are in that sense.
Wow, that is a very, very powerful
Can I chime in on that? If you don't mind.
Please do.
I want to just a small bit, just to add in on what she just said. And as the leader, especially you have to establish trust, but also empower your people, empower them to express their ideas. There's no right or wrong answers here because we are in a very fluid world. I think we're starting to realize how fluid the world is. And to Wish's world is that we make these models and they're in snapshots of time, but in future snapshots of time, those models they're not optimal any longer. So you have to really involve a lot of people in your ideation phase to other people that were on the panel talking about, if you don't have enough data, you don't have all the data, you're coming up with models that aren't really optimum and holistic in point. So when you empower as many people as you can, you get better models.
I totally agree on that. And Naja or Hi How, yeah, please chime
Yeah,
in
I
and
just
then
also
Naja.
wanted to jump in as because I was struck, as I was listening to that, just how pretty much everything that was said also applies in an education context, right? I'm talking literally in a classroom context, right? We don't. I don't want to say we don't, but teachers aren't usually referred to as like, the leaders of an organization, but in many ways they are, right? They're the leaders of the classroom, of the students, and I think you know an important parallel here, right, is we have this power dynamic, right? We have like the manager in an organization, and then you have the teacher in a classroom, and you have the students, and what everything that was said about like trust and empowerment, I think really applies in this educational context, right? Today's theme is, right, how do we adaptive leadership in an uncertain world, right? And just as Grant said, we don't know what the future holds, right? And the same is even more true for the youngest among us, right? Like, even when we're gone, they'll still be around in a world that is unrecognizable to us. And so how do we prepare them for that? And that's sort of a big challenge for teachers right now, right? And so to go back to what Bay said, right? I think going back to some of these fundamentals, right? Like critical thinking and about knowing what's real, right? Not just taking shortcuts. I think all of these things are really important, more important than ever to impart on our students, so that this becomes a lifelong thing for them, right? That they'll be comfortable with uncertainty. They'll be comfortable with experimenting with new ideas. So,
Yeah, that is very powerful. Bay, you want to add
Yeah,
something to that?
I just name a new word because we are now have been in our school here in the Netherlands. We're trying to co-create with the students and like a co-build, as we call it, community-driven innovation. And I think this is something also inspired by what we see globally, that you see like in the existing economies and markets, there's a lot of geopolitical elements and also power dynamic shift. But we see how people are connected, like really like a community driven, like either based on a necessity or based on certain kind of needs, or having the real defined problem and solving the real problem. So that's why we emphasize community driven innovation. Try to balance out this long-term and short-term goal, balance also the mission driven and also market driven, because we want the student to really like feel also tangible developments, not just like saying, okay, we're going to have a very, very grand vision for like a long term. That's the North Star. That's very important. But at the same time, we really facilitate them to kind of get hands-on and to look at, okay, we're not going to expect 3 years build up a brand, but how are you going to survive, in the 5 or 6 months? And I think this is really giving a lot of nice stimulation, because students and the younger generation feel the ownership. And then we are actually disrupting the traditional, like, company model and things. So I think we kind of like co-write or rewrite a playbook together with younger generation. So I think this is
Totally agree with that, Bay. And when it comes to community development, it's something we really advocate for here in Gatherverse, and I'm sure it's one of our standards. So I really agree with that. Camila, what do you have? What is your take here? And Naja, I'll come to you next. Camila, please share your thoughts.
I honestly am like, I can't add anything else. I mean, I agree, because, you do start at the beginning, right? It is something that starts at the beginning when you're forming a team, or as early as possible, you build that trust. And as a leader, the people that you lead are going to follow your example. So you have to lead by example. If you're late, if you don't care about following through with deadlines, things like that, people are going to are going to follow how you lead. So you have to set the example. You have to build that trust, and that's how you do it, is by setting that example. And then you also have to create that environment that's like, hey, one thing that we didn't talk about is understanding what a leader is, because a lot of times, sometimes people think a leader is someone that gives orders. Like, that's not it at all, right? A leader is someone that, yes, you have that vision, you hold that vision, but you give the people that you lead autonomy to figure out how to get to that vision. And you give the community that you lead that they're able to come as a group and come up with that vision and the way that they do it. And so when you're experimenting with new ideals, yes, there is no wrong answer, that people come up with. It's their ideal. And so no matter what age, no matter what race, no matter what, making sure that everyone is heard, but then also giving them the autonomy to fail and say, hey, it's okay if you fail fast. I don't know if you ever heard that, fail fast, succeed often. Fail, that's fine. Let's learn from our mistakes and then try something different, and then if you need additional resources as a leader, I'm here to provide those resources for you to help you learn, to help you grow, to help build that community. I think that's what it's all about, to build that trust.
Yeah, that's very profound. And thank you for defining leadership. And if I want to add, Wish just said good leaders create good leaders. Exactly. And good leaders lead by example. I do know of a quote that says everything lies and falls under leadership. Naja, what's your take on this? Please give us your thoughts.
Yeah, I just first want to observe, I love how no matter how, diverse the backgrounds of everyone on the panel, I mean, ultimately everyone kind of comes to the point of saying, oh, integrity and trust and mission and values is really what it's all about. And I think that's a really, really powerful point, because, this... like, it's a very interesting time to be alive, in that, it's kind of like a curse kind of way. Sometimes there's a lot happening. And I think reality itself is becoming questionable, because every person, every group, every, region, whether virtual or in person, everyone has a different reality. And now we are seeing the, sometimes like opposition of those realities play out in really big ways, geopolitically, economically, technologically. So there's a lot happening. And it's for a lot of people, and arguably for all of us, no matter how versed we think we are, it is ultimately a scary time, because we have no freaking idea what's going to happen, right? But the good thing is that we are not going to do it alone. I don't know if any of you remember feeling like, what is that Will Smith movie when he was the last person in the world? I felt that way during COVID one time. And I was like, oh my God, like, this is not how I want to step into the future. I don't want to step into the future alone. I want to do it with other people. And I think ultimately that is what it all comes down to. And so then if you look at, what is adaptive leadership? What is leadership? Leadership always starts with self-leadership. Leadership is always a mirror of, you might think it's this person and this scenario and that situation and these dynamics, but ultimately it all points back to you. That's just how, human interactions work. So it's actually really beautiful if we consider that we are all at this, sort of inflection point where we don't know what tomorrow is going to bring. None of us have all the answers. So we can now actually co-creatively start and collectively start constructing new realities, but also questioning the ones that are currently being put to us. Understand, as you understand whether AI data is real or not. Also understand if your own cognitive biases are, valid or not. If your brain software needs to be updated from like earlier programs that are outdated. So yeah, it's a difficult time, but I think together it's not nearly as difficult. It's actually like a choose your own adventure book. So yeah, let's all have some fun and adventure together.
That is very powerful. I think together, that's why we're called Gatherverse. We're bringing each and every one of us together to do all this pamoja. That pamoja means together in Swahili. And Marie, I want to hear your take on this before our times closes off.
Lynn, real quick before you move on, can I add just one little piece on the leadership thing?
Yeah, please.
I think a good way to think about a leadership versus like a director or a boss is, anybody can give direction to do something, but a leaders, they do it by doing it. And then everybody else just kind of like follows them. Like, I think that's a big distinction between somebody that is able to just direct a team or guide a team versus somebody that's building something and being a leader in that process. That's it.
That's very powerful. Anne-Marie, you're the last one. Close us off. Close the whole panel. Tell us what you think.
Yeah, thank you. So everybody's comments have been really great, and honestly, I feel like there's not much to add. But just to go off Nadia's last comment, and also I know Bay and Hey How are doing education. I do really think that education is important in instilling trust, because when you know something, you're confident in it and you trust yourself to do it. And so I think educating people, there's such a thing as too much resources, but there's also educating people about the greater world, but also the world around them, right? So like I'm on the board of a nonprofit, and often people are like, oh my God, we need to do this like this. We need to do that. Like, we need to talk to this person. We need to look at what this intervention that happened in, like, let's say, somewhere in China, is that going to work here in Africa? And it's also like, trust yourself, trust your surroundings, trust what you see, learn to know that, yes, that exists, but that's also for specific to that region, but there's also something that's specific to you. And I think that giving people, like Bay was saying, like giving people the no data solution, sometimes it's really good to instill trust, because then you learn, and you also you learn a valuable lesson that gives you trust in self. And I think that as a leader and as people who love to bring people together, making sure that you're empowering your people to trust themselves. Because yes, they might trust you, but then what happens to the leader if everybody's coming to you 24/7? You're going to get worn out if they're really coming to you all the time. But so like my team is 24/7, 365. I need to make sure that at 2 a.m. when I'm asleep, they are able to make that decision, and they trust themselves to make that decision. And I will support them, whether that decision was the wrong decision or the right decision at the time. And I think that education, to sum it all up, I think that education and also, letting people go out there and explore and trust themselves is something that's really, really great, because I found that when they trust themselves, they will come to me and tell me, hey, I did this. I'm not sure if it's the right thing, but here's the lesson I learned. This is what happened. These were the results, without me having to do anything. So that is all I have to say.
And that was powerful. What you had to say was powerful. And everyone who expressed on this panel was just incredibly powerful. We could go on. I learned so much. I'm sure the audience learned so much. And maybe just let me read some few comments, and then we can close up the panel. William says media has the power to influence thinking, movement in specific directions, and our relationships with each other. Lisa says, nice gathering. Thank you. Africa VR Campus says, we are present and accounted for, streaming this in the metaverse. Someone is streaming in the metaverse. And that was very, very powerful. Our dear audience, I encourage you, please connect with these leaders, learn from them, and maybe support them. And I will gather as well for this panel. Thank you so much. Over to you, Gatherverse team. Thank you.